Hi, friends. It's September 14th, 2023. It's been 369 days since I've visited with my brother Paul, or I've seen him. I'm allowed one 10-minute visit with him on the telephone, which is tomorrow at 4:30. He seems to be going downhill. He tells me he loves me, he misses me, but he doesn't recognize my voice as quickly as he did in the beginning. So what I just wanted to tell you about is I live in British Columbia. I live in a place called Coquitlam, which is in the Vancouver region of British Columbia. And so I sued my brother's group home, L'Arche Greater Vancouver. L'Arche is spelled L'Arche. Google them. You can see what kind of organization they are. And Googled its founder is a Canadian naval officer and sex predator named Jean Vanier. But anyways, so I sued them to restore Paul's visit. So what happened was they cut off Paul's visits with me and with all outsiders on January 10th of 2022 on the basis there was a COVID outbreak in the group home and other issues. That was the email. So I tried very hard to reinstate his visits, and as an essential visitor, the BC Centre for Disease Control does not recommend cutting off visits by essential visitors. I am the only relative Paul has left living from a big family in the lower mainland of BC, and he's my only relative. So we grew up together. We're only 2 years apart. I'm one of the handful of people, or really, one of the handful of people in the world that understand Paul's speech easily. He has Down syndrome, speech pathology. So I didn't know what was going on, but L'Arche terminated we had an agreement of twice weekly visits, once at L'Arche and once at my home here. And immediately after we formalized that agreement, they terminated all his contact with outsiders. So I sued them. And as soon as they were served with the papers, they reinstated visits for 7 months. And then they terminated their lawyer, whose name is Tara Britno. She is what's called a King's Counsel. So after I sued them, I discovered something by court order that L'Arche had Paul sign a power of attorney appointing my 81-year-old sister, who's a nun in Northern Ontario, and who's only met Paul on a handful of occasions and who's never lived with him or contributed in any way to his care or support, as his guardian. And I have a brother who's a disbarred lawyer in Prague named Michael Kierans, and she appointed Michael Kierans as the monitor. Michael was disbarred for misappropriation and malfeasance with respect to 4 different vulnerable clients. So the first thing I did, I sued L'Arche. They reinstated the visits. And then when the hearing was approaching, for me to actually appoint who was going to be the guardian, and it's called a committee in British Columbia, L'Arche terminated the visits again, and this is 369 days ago on September 10th of 2022, so last year. So I haven't seen Paul for 4 seasons now. I still have my Christmas tree up. So when the second time they terminated his visits, I applied to reinstate the visits, and on what's called an interim basis, while we're waiting for the hearing to take place about who would be the guardian. And the judge, whose name was Justice Sharma, the Attorney General of BC, her name is Sharma too. So I don't know if they're sisters or what the deal is there. But she said she dismissed my application to reinstate the visits on the basis that L'arche knew what was best for Paul. And I applied for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court, to the Court of Appeal of British Columbia, and then the Supreme Court of Canada. And I was not successful, and I had costs awarded against me at every level of court. Then I tried to set down the hearing, the actual trial, about who would be the guardian of Paul. And that was heard on August 1, 2, and 3. And since that time, the judge, Jasvinder Basran, lost my file. So when you go to trial, it's not, well, you go to trial, you have documents that are called exhibits, affidavits, that you rely on. And I had 6 binders, so it looked like this. I had to make a set, 410 pages for the judge. And after that hearing, the judge did not reinstate the visits. He said that L'arche did not have the right to unilaterally terminate Paul's visits with me, but he did nothing to reinstate them. And he said that he would deliver his reasons for judgment on September 6th. September 6th came, and he adjourned the hearing again till October 6th. But I noticed that he didn't have these documents here, that my exhibits, my court file, that took me about 2 weeks of photocopying at Staples. And I had to tab and index. I made color copies of the photographs. And the judge said, Justice Basran said, he had never seen these documents and he didn't have them. He just had the binders or the exhibits that my sister, the 81-year-old nun in Northern Ontario, had produced. Her and her 2 lawyers, $350 an hour lawyers. So at the same time that this was going on, I filed a complaint with the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal, filed a complaint, opened a complaint on an expedited basis on my behalf. I'm a disabled person. I have a mild traumatic brain injury from an accident in 2008. I've got lupus. I have a life-threatening heart condition and kidney failure. So the BC Human Rights Tribunal opened a complaint against L'arche and its funding body, which is the government of British Columbia's Crown Corporation. It's called Community Living BC. So this morning, I got an email. I practiced law for 26 years. So when there was another, when a case was opened and a lawyer, you started interacting with the lawyer for the other side, you'd pick up the phone and you talk with them and you try and get a sense of what was going on, what the case was about, what was their position, was there any way that you could reach any conclusions or, so here you have a 67-year-old disabled woman and a 65-year-old man who's profoundly disabled with Down syndrome, who has been confined to his group home for 369 days. And their lawyer, the lawyer for the Attorney General, rather for the Crown Corporation that funds L'arche, her name is Julia Rowe, okay? So I thought, well, I'll get a call from Julia Rowe and I can just sort of explain to her my position or what I think is going on. But this morning, I get an email from her that says this. I'm counsel for Community Living British Columbia, one of the respondents to your above noted human rights complaint. It's my understanding there's an ongoing petition under the Patients Property Act in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. I request your consent to defer the complaint until the final resolution has been reached in the petition. Please note, in the event you do not consent, I have instruction to file a deferral application with the BC Human Rights Tribunal. So no phone call. I don't know who this person is. It sounds like a made-up name, like Jane Doe, Julia Rowe. Didn't pick up the phone. Could perhaps settle. I could say, I could explain that in my opinion, the guardianship agreement that L'arche had my brother sign is invalid because he's too low functioning to appoint a guardian, that it's a forgery, in my opinion. I could let her know how long, how long I've been visiting Paul for 28 years with L'arche with no problem. Then all of a sudden, with the COVID struck, then they terminated his visits with me. And, I could have just explained my position to her. But the thing is about lawyers now is they don't want to know what your position is. They don't want to know until, like the case with Omar Khadr, the 15-year-old child soldier that the federal government had to pay $10.5 million to, because they left him to rot in Guantanamo Bay for years. They don't want to know because it's not their money. It's not their money. And the one thing that I learned as a lawyer is that paper insulates. Blah, blah, blah. You write emails, you send a letter. It's insulation. You don't have to deal with the problem. I have a 65-year-old brother who's wonderful, innocent, lovable person who's never hurt a fly, and who our family has stuck by through thick and thin and cared for and supported, and who is my only relative left in the Lower Mainland, who understands me and I understand him. So you've got a person like that languishing in a group home by himself, and me languishing for a year without seeing my brother. So I responded to her. I just told her, I've just completed a Freedom of Information request for disclosure of documents from you about me. And she wrote back and she said, thank you for your email. I do not have instructions to share any documents on behalf of CLBC at this time. Once your complaint proceeds to the document disclosure step, all the parties will be required to share all documents in their possession related to the complaint unless the document is privileged. She didn't say, well, what's an important document here, Kathleen? Please let me know if you consent or oppose or take no position or deferral on the human rights complaint pending the resolution of the Patient Property Act. So that's what we're dealing with here in Canada and in British Columbia. NDP government, I was NDP most of my life, and this is what we end up with. It's kind of a communist gulag. It's worse than a gulag. I don't know how long Solzhenitsyn was in a gulag, but where Paul is, it's a gulag. And there's no there's no process of justice, due process. Anyways, so every day I get up and I just sit at this desk. The rule is I sit at this desk from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. I give myself 45 minutes for lunch. I try and work on this case as much as I can. I try and think of some new angle, some new strategy, some way of moving things forward. Right now, I'm worn out. I'm burned out. If you can imagine a judge losing I was called to the bar in 1992 and I never heard of a judge losing a file. But that's where we're at. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching and giving me an outlet to vent and to express my feelings. I think I'm asking you to share this video as much as you can. Remember, Canada is now a country that will kill people. So with the medical assistance in dying, Canada kills people by lethal injection. So a doctor, any old doctor or nurse can administer a lethal injection and kill vulnerable people based on the paperwork that they provide to any medical practitioner. And this is the kind of bureaucracy and what Solzhenitsyn would call a gulag that we're dealing with here. So if just put that in perspective. I would never have believed that Canadian justice could have devolved to this Julia Rowe or Jane Doe or whatever the hell your name is. Such an I can't wait till you end up paying my brother $10.5 million. I just hope he's alive to see it. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Again, please pray for us, contribute to our GoFundMe account. So we're down to $60. I've got applications. You can see what I'm dealing with here. I've got applications to file and court costs at 3 different levels to pay. I'm fighting the good fight. Copy and paste the email that I'll put in the description box to this video and send it to the bureaucrats, each of whom could restore Paul's visits with 1 phone call. But they don't want to. They like the power of hurting people, and they don't want to give up that power. We saw that through the COVID-19 lockdowns and mandates and vaccines that were injured people. They don't want to. They don't want to admit. They don't want to do the right thing. It's clear to me until they're made to do the right thing. But so please copy and paste the email that I'll put a draft email, but you can send them any email. Say whatever you want about the situation, or in the comment section for this video, just put your comments or questions. Maybe you don't understand the situation as I've explained it to you. If you'd like to ask questions, please post the questions. And Hossein, I noticed that you said that you prayed for us. Thank you so much. Honestly, I have so much faith in the power of prayer. And that's why I keep plugging away and I don't give up, because I know sooner or later we're going to win. Paul, I miss you so much. This is the afternoon, a Thursday afternoon from 4 to 5 when I should have been visiting you at your group home. I will see you soon. I just know it. I love you so much. I miss you. Hang in there, dear.